Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to everybody in the gallery, as well as everybody that's tuning in online. To our regular council meeting for January 26th of 2026. So the first order is to call the meeting to order at 1:01. And then we move down to item 1.1, added items. Is there any added items that council would like to put on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for an adoption of the agenda by consensus. Is everybody in agreement with the agenda? Unanimous, thank you for that. Okay, adoption of the previous minutes from our regular council meeting, January 12th, 2026. I hope all of you had time to review them. Is there any questions or comments on the January 12th minutes? None? Seeing none? Through consensus then, do I have agreement to accept these minutes? Unanimous as well. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, public hearings. The first public hearing is bylaw 2026-01, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. Okay, so first of all, for council, pecuniary interest for municipal councillors, section 172 of the MGA states that you may not take part in discussion and decision-making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership on council. If you have a pecuniary interest, you are to disclose that you have an interest and its general nature prior to any discussion. You are to abstain from any discussion of the matter and from voting. You are to leave the room until matter has been discussed and voting concluded. And you are to make sure that your abstention is recorded in the minutes. You are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in the public hearing as a member of the public. All right, so after saying that, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2026-01 land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment open at 1:04. Now I ask the municipal land clerk, planner, Mr. Sloan, to present purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The subject property for this bylaw is located at 4318 50th Avenue and is currently located within the Light Industrial, or ILD, Land Use District. There are a number of uses on the property operated by a nonprofit group, including an office space, programming space for their activities, as well as the Olds Bottle Depot. The applicant approached the town late last year regarding a situation that had arisen at one of their other properties that houses tenants that need 24/7 care. That property needs extensive renovations, and those tenants, there are 4 of them, need to be relocated temporarily. The proposed zoning change is for the rear of the property to be rezoned to mixed-use center, and the front of the property along the street to be rezoned to commercial general district. These zoning changes align with the Uptown Olds Area Redevelopment Plan, which calls for a mixture of commercial and residential uses on site. This would allow the Bottle Depot to continue operating in the commercial land use district, as the amendment also proposes to add that definition to the use, or to the site in particular, and would in an existing building. Building is at this point. The recycling facility is not currently listed, which is why that's part of this. It needs to be, currently it's not in the CGD district, but it needs to be in order to allow it to continue operating and be compliant with the bylaw. This bylaw was given first reading on January 12th, 2026. Notice of the public hearing was posted on the town website that day and advertised in the January 20th newspaper. Notice was also directly circulated to neighboring property owners. One letter from a resident was received seeking more information about the proposed changes. That is attached as attachment 2. Many of the questions in that letter were more directed towards administration, so I have had some correspondence with that resident clarifying the purpose of the bylaw amendment and the distinction between the bylaw amendment that we're speaking of today and the development potential of the new land uses and the processes that would take place for any development permits moving forward. There is also a letter from the applicant themselves that has been attached that goes into more detail about the situation with their residents and their reasons for applying for this amendment. I have also received another letter from the applicant that I'll read later in the process for those speaking in favor. They are unable to attend today, so I will read their statement on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. I turn to our municipal clerk. Is there people to speak to this? No?
To continue with the public hearing,
Yeah.
you declared it open. I believe there's a script for people who wish to.
Yeah. Is there
speak?
people that are willing to or wanting to speak in favor or against this? Okay, so I see none. Planner Sloan, you would like to read the final correspondence?
Sure, thank you. Yes, I will read the letter from the applicant speaking in favor. Good afternoon, councillors, administration, and members of the public. Regrettably, I am unable to attend in person today and appreciate the opportunity to provide additional information for the public hearing on accredited supports to the community's 3 interconnected land use amendments for our parcel at 4318 50th Avenue. Accredited Supports to the Community is a registered charity and not-for-profit that has served the citizens of Olds and area since 1974. The initial requested amendment will allow us to provide temporary, safe, and accessible residential accommodation for 4 adults with physical and developmental disabilities while their permanent home undergoes major repairs due to water damage. The additional 2 amendment requests will serve to align the zoning of our entire parcel with the town's municipal development plan and Uptown Area Redevelopment Plan, moving the parcel out of industrial zoning. A quick summary of our requested amendments includes building 4320, so they're using those 3 different addresses for their different buildings. Building 4320, which we call the center, amend to mixed-use center for temporary residential accommodation for approximately 4 to 6 months, after which it returns to its current use, providing hourly community access and life skills development programs for adults and children with developmental disabilities. Building 4318, the Olds Bottle Depot, amend to commercial general district and add recycling facility as a permitted use, as this aligns with our current operations and the town's plans. Building 4322, is the office building, and that's to amend to mixed-use center for office use, which is the current use with no proposed operational change, but it would again align with the town's plans. In considering our request, I would like to outline the rationale and the significant benefits these amendments will bring to both the Olds community and the individuals we serve. As I understand from working with the municipal planner on this application, The interconnected amendments for this parcel will serve to bring the entire parcel into conformity with the town's development plans and will support long-term consistent land use. More to my area of experience, the individuals who would temporarily reside at the center building, 4320, require uninterrupted 24-hour supports in a completely accessible environment. Their safety, stability, and well-being are our top priorities. ASC is unable to proceed with renovations of their current home until suitable alternative physically accessible accommodation can be secured. ASC has explored multiple alternatives to no avail and is now seeking this amendment. I would also like to highlight an important longer-term benefit for future flexibility for ASC. ASC operates 6 24-hour group homes. While the current request is driven by one specific emergency renovation, approving these amendments now provides responsible and proactive flexibility should future situations arise in any of our other homes, such as unexpected damage, major renovations, or structural failures. This amendment ensures that ASC can respond quickly and safely in future emergencies, that individuals with significant physical and developmental disabilities can remain in Olds close to their supports and community, and that temporary relocations, when required, can happen without disruption of care and without needing repeated applications for short-term zoning changes. This proactive approach will enable us to continue providing stable, reliable, and uninterrupted care whenever unexpected circumstances occur. Thank you for your time and consideration. We value the town's collaboration and are committed to being responsible partners in the Olds community. Dana Wild, Executive Director of Accredited Supports to the Community.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. And now there's no further comments. I'd just like to say I'd like to eliminate callouts as procedural bylaw 2025-16 S153. All right. So then we'll move down to council comments. Does council have any comments on the previous presentation? Mr. Sloan, would you like any final comments on this application?
No further comments from me. Thanks.
Thank you. So then at this time, I would like to call the public hearing closed at 1:13 for bylaw 2026-01 land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. Being that the public hearing is now closed, I can then ask the question of council to make a motion. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that bylaw 2026-01 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any final comments? No? Okay, ask for the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Now for the second motion. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that bylaw 2026-01 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater. Any discussion, comments? Seeing none, I ask the question. All those in favor? Unanimous, passed. Thank you very much. Move on to 3.2, bylaw 2026-02, Northeast Area Structure Plan, 2024-38 Amendment, and bylaw 2026-03 Land Use Bylaw. So at this time, I would like to just remind council of the preliminary items that I read previously. They are still in effect. And so at this time at 1:15, I call the public hearing open for bylaw 2026-02 Northeast Area Structure Plan 2024-38 Amendment and bylaw 2026-03 Land Use Bylaw. There's two of them in that in that title. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Sloan to give us our purpose and effect.
Thank you again. These two bylaws serve the same purpose, but for two different plans, one being the land use bylaw and one being the Northeast Area Structure Plan. In 2024, the town adopted a new area structure plan for the Northeast. The ASP, Area Structure Plan's concept plan, includes a large amount of commercial zoning along both highways 2A and 27. The primary intent of this is not due to a need for this amount of commercial inventory, but rather to create a visual buffer from the highways when entering the town on either of those. The primary purpose of the plan area is light industrial. Administration believes that there are alternative ways to achieve the intent of creating that buffer through substantial landscaping features, berms, building design, and so on. It has become clear since the ASP's adoption in 2014 that the demand for industrial land in town far exceeds that for large-scale highway commercial land, and that the investment needed for initial development of the plan area will likely need to come in the form of large-scale development rather than a large volume of small-scale developments over time. Therefore, these bylaws propose to remove the commercial component from land use concept map to help facilitate such an investment. It was noted at the first reading that the area structure plan also still identified in a number of locations and on maps the former town administration building. So amendments have also been made since first reading to address that and remove reference to the town office building in the text. These bylaws were given first reading on January 12th, 2026. Notice of the public hearing was posted on the town website that day and advertised in the January 20th newspaper. Notice was also circulated to 32 property owners in the area. No correspondence either for or against has been received by administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. And I'll look to the gallery. Is there anybody to speak in support, against, or affected by these changes? Okay, so I will then have to read the preamble here, and then we'll call you up. Okay, so to explain the procedures, rules to be followed, presentation before the council shall be brief and to the point, limited to 5 minutes. Council shall not cross-examine of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for the persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. No written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. Persons addressing council will state their name and address, indicate if they are speaking on their own behalf or for a client, company, or citizens group. The chairman shall call first time for all those in support of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Call for a second time for those in support for the proposed bylaw to come forward to make a presentation. Call for first time for those opposed to come forward and make a presentation. Call second for opposed, and so forth for persons deemed affected the proposed bylaw to come forward, and then call second for deemed affected by the proposed bylaw to come forward. So after that, I will then ask people, I'll make the first call for those in support of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Call for a second time for those in support of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Seeing none, call for the first time for all those opposed to the opposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Janie Olson of Olds. While I just represent myself, I have been in conversation with multiple people within our community. And I think I've looked at both sides of this proposal. And while I can see benefit to some of those changes, I'm constantly concerned that when we do these public hearings, they're done in the afternoon, where most people who have jobs, et cetera, cannot actually come and attend and have their input. And so when there's things of this magnitude, this 655 acres is what, approximately 18 to 20% of the town's actual land footprint, is that correct? It's a big parcel of town land. And so I think that warrants more consultation. I think it warrants the opportunity for more people to speak to what is happening. There's rumors, I don't know if they're true, that perhaps there's non-disclosure with respect to what this exact location may already have some intended uses for. And again, once that land development change has happened, it seems to be harder to speak to things that have permits, that have sort of some momentum. And I spoke with our MLA in this past week and asked her how it is that they can publicly announce that we're getting a data center. And again, these two things may not be correlated, but just the concept that we're getting this data center and it'll be open and functional by the end of the year without public consultation to that effect. So she suggested that this was an Invest Olds thing, that they were just basically told it was a go-ahead. So I'm just confused maybe a little bit about the communication on some of these parcels. And so to make this change today, it's an option, but I would prefer that more people have opportunity to speak to it.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Dardis, Olds. I'm speaking against it. I don't want to drive into Olds or people driving into Olds and seeing an industrial area first thing. The strip mall like we have here at Cornerstone is a much better application for that property. It's more inviting. It looks busier when people are moving or coming in or coming through town. So to change this to an industrial area, and I don't know what the top end of that is all going to be, but I think one of the major concerns of even starting development is our lack of sewage pump stations. So nothing's going to happen in any of this land unless we get our sewers pump stations going, and asking a developer to come in and pay for something that Olds should have been doing all along to have capacity for growth, which we don't have. We can't build anything in this town unless we get sewage capacity. So the past councils, past administration has dropped the ball and not kept up with the current demands and future demands that are required for sewers for development. So none of this can happen on this place unless someone puts some money in for a sewer pump station. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Eric Carlson. Eric Carlson, lifelong Olds resident. I agree with Pat slightly, or pretty much completely. Like, driving into Olds, this is going to be a huge contrast. Like, we got the beautiful botanical gardens on one side. We're going to have what, like warehousing and what on the other side. And just like driving into Olds, looking at just huge black box buildings. It's like driving into Calgary near the airport. Like, it's just not inviting at all. And 2 weeks ago, you guys talked about like putting away a little bit of money towards a green space. Like, we're gonna have green space. It's gonna be nice. But if they plant any trees, they're gonna be dead. They plant them in boulevards. They're surrounded by concrete. they're not going to put the money into keeping them alive. It's just going to be grass. Like you drive into North Calgary, all you see is these giant, massive buildings and a bit of grass. Grass is easy. You can mow grass. And it's just like the college is super nice. Like they put all that money into the botanical gardens. Like it's awesome. And then across the highway, we're going to have just like ugly boxes with some grass and just like it's not going to contribute to like the appealing quality of Olds at all. And on top of that, well, maybe Mrs. Olson, I think, is correct. Maybe there is some actual headway, and we have some projects in the works. But if we don't, like, why aren't they going to go to Mountain View County and get that highway frontage? Like, RME's out there, Kloss just went out there. Like, if Trochu Motors ever came to Olds, like, we're lucky Brant didn't pull out and move all their stuff to Penhold. But it's like we got competition for commercial already. And, like, I don't know what the cost structure is between Mountain View County and Olds, but I know Mountain View County, the highway, has better frontage for at least commercial. And it's like, I don't know, if we did get, like, any kind of warehousing, why isn't it going to be at the highway? And, like, all warehouses, like, we're nowhere near an airport. So anyways, I don't know. I think it's going to be hideous, and I don't think it's going to, like, sure, it'll help tax revenue. Or it could just lay empty for 10 years. And on top of that, last thing, is, like, we have commercial already. Like we did the roundabout out by the cemetery. Like, what's going on north of cemetery there? Like, why can't we hide some buildings out there? Or, like, down where Ram River is, like, there's just a dead road there. Like, is commercial or industrial going to continue out that way? Or are we going to bring residential to that industrial park? Like we already have these areas, and they're actually kind of hidden and not, like, I don't know. I'd rather drive into Olds and just look at a wheat field or a canola field than, like, giant goddamn warehouses. Sorry, pardon my language. I'm sorry. Anyways, I don't know. And then, yeah, the pumping stations, like, the infrastructure isn't there. Like, it all runs, like Pat said. I don't know. It's just, it seems like you guys have grand ambitions and you want Olds to, what, maybe expand to the highway? It's like, we're not going to expand to the highway. The whole town's moving west. Everyone loves west. The mountains are west. Like, other than the high school, which, that was a debacle. So anyways, I don't know. I think it's crazy. Also, I don't know if we own the land or if we're going to annex the land, if we're going to pay for the land. Land's never been more expensive. So anyways, I'm a taxpayer. I don't want my dollars going towards crazy things that, like, it could just turn into a giant concrete parking lot for 10 years if it doesn't fill up. Like, look at Didsbury, where that AG Foods got put. It's, like, basically empty still. And that's not nice to look at. I don't know. I like Olds being beautiful. Like I said, one side of the highway is, like, the college has invested so much money, and they have the arborists taking care of their tree line. Like, if we have any development here, we're not going to have a nice tree line. If they try, it's going to be dead in 10 years because it's trees surrounded by concrete dye. It's just going to be strips of grass and buildings. So anyways, I want the best for Olds. I love Olds. But it seems like wild ambitions. And you guys were talking about, so if there is AI, it's going to be where the cannabis place is because the electrical's there. Like, it's, so anyways, I don't know why we're not pushing to develop that way, pushing to maybe fill out the Imperial zone. But anyways, I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So second time for all those opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. All right, seeing none, I move down and I go call for first time for all those persons deemed to be affected by the proposed bylaw to come forward and to make a presentation. And making the second time call for those persons deemed to be affected by the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. All right, seeing none, then I turn it over to council for comments. Councillor Kush?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to probably Mr. Sloan. In our previous council meeting, when we were talking about this, I echoed both what Eric and Pat said about the highway frontage. I believe I was quoted in the newspaper saying I didn't want it to look like a war zone. Kyle, Mr. Sloan, can you reiterate how you answered my question then about the land use bylaw and how it addresses, excuse me, a situation like this?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. I do recall that conversation at first reading, and a couple of things that I had mentioned is when it comes time to have a development permit applications for this land or any land. At first reading, I said I believe the industrial district requires 15% of the land area to be landscaped. That is actually 10%. So 10% of the entire parcel area has to be landscaped. And we do have some control over requesting where that is. So it doesn't just have to be landscaping in the middle. We can have a developer encourage them to push all of their 10% of the parcel area that's landscaped down towards the south and west sides. Depending on the types of development as well, we also have depending on the scale of it, if it's a very large scale development, for instance, they might be required to have stormwater management plans that include ponds and stuff, which we do see quite a bit in the southeast industrial area. Additionally, for that 10% of the land that is required to be landscaped, we have minimum densities of trees and shrubs. So for instance, one tree per 50 square meters of that required landscaping area. We do have some rules about the types of trees that can be used and things like that. So we feel like we have tools beyond just the area redevelopment or area structure plan to help create that visual buffer, because we agree. We also don't want the first impression of Olds when you're driving into town from 27, which was by far where most people are coming from, to just see warehouses or factories or industrial to have that first impression. So we do feel like we have tools beyond this plan to address that.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. And I spoke at our previous meeting as well and concur with Ben and brought up about the subject about driving into the town of Olds. We've all driven around all different parts of Alberta or wherever you drive to. And the last thing you want to see is sort of a dumping station of whatever when you come into a town, because it does look terrible. So I am too concerned about the frontage and making sure that the frontage of what faces Highway 27 and the east side is landscaped properly so that, you know, you don't see a bunch of industrial big equipment or garbage of whatever they need to recycle or put in the landfill. So I do have that concern as well, because I do like our community. I think our community is beautiful, and the entrance to our community should remain that way. I am in favor of the industrial part going there, but it has to be put in so that it's aesthetically pleasing. It can't be just one tree here, one tree there, and a little bit of grass, because that doesn't cover it.
Thank you. Councillor Latz?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Unfortunately, I did miss our last meeting. I was away on vacation, and I have not had an opportunity to review or watch that meeting. So I didn't want to come in here with a whole bunch of questions and be repeating what was already asked. But I did hear our municipal planner, Mr. Sloan, did state that we are in need of more industrial land versus commercial land, which we all recognize as a need. And perhaps maybe at this time, I mean, I did have concerns with the aesthetics too. That would have been one of my major concerns, and perhaps then either Mr. Sloan and or hopefully Mr. C.O. Williams could speak to, could that be built into a future development permit to ensure that the aesthetics would be taken care of. And perhaps maybe could, with your permission, Mayor Daley, could C.O. Williams speak further to land development around industrial, and as far as what we know, what we can potentially do going to the west to answer Mr. Carlson's question. And thank you to all who have spoken today. I appreciate that.
Thank you. C.O. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Blatz. Yeah, I made a few notes here. I can go through them quickly, some of which is repeating the presentation from the previous meeting. Regarding the land uses, the different shades up there, the approximately 600 acres, give or take. The beige is industrial zone, and then the Traisto black is the commercial zone, essentially. So about 75% of that 4/4 section area is already zoned industrial. This would make it entirely industrial. However, as Mr. Sloan alluded to last meeting, this was done before 2025 land use bylaw review. Prior to that, industrial looked very different, light industrial in particular. Light industrial in its current form is largely a hybrid between commercial and industrial. If you read the uses, the main difference between previous land use bylaw and this land use bylaw's definition of commercial is residential. That under this zoning, even though we could still have retail, gas stations, restaurants even, there is no mixed use allowed in industrial areas, so residential up top. That's largely the primary caveat. Sorry, I'm just going to look at my list here. Regarding the sewage infrastructures, always an important topic. At a broad level, our system, both locally and regionally, because we're on the regional system, has a lot of capacity left. The issue is the broken pipes that are letting during rain events and snow melt events that storm water into the system. And that's why we're actively repairing those and trying to identify leaks in real time in both the water and sanitary issue. But in the northeast area, this is totally unserviced. So it requires, our best guess, initial investment to build a single acre of development, $3 to $5 million. Most of that initial investment is in the sanitary lift back into town or back to the regional system. So in my presentation 2 weeks ago, one of the key factors asking for this rezoning was commercial developers don't carry that type of upfront capital risk. Industrial developers tend to carry that. So we want to actively create an industrial zone here, more or less, and have them pay for that upfront cost, which for large developments, industrial developments, it's much more practical to front load those expenses on behalf of the municipality. That would then unlock the remaining development, however much that might be. Touched on, Kyle spoke to visibility and aesthetics, I won't touch on that one again. The highway lands on Highway 2 and in the county, the gentleman is correct. That's where a lot of large-scale commercial and light industrial is going. The farm implement dealers, RV storage, and that will probably continue, I would guess as well, just because of the highway frontage there. The demand we're seeing in Olds is much more for the commercial side, much more retail-based. So when we look into Highway 27 here, we have the lands west of Canadian Tire, across the road west from No Frills, and then vacant parcels heading up there. That's kind of our focus growth for future commercial, much more focused on our competitive advantages there. We won't be able to compete with the county in a lot of ways in that east along Highway 2 areas, but there's room to coexist. What the county doesn't have, though, is services. They don't offer potable water or sanitary connection systems. It's a pump-out system for sanitary there. So for most industrial developments, large-scale industrial developments, they require those active connections to potable water systems and to sanitary networks, which we're able to provide, and we're seeing the higher demand for in industrial areas as opposed to commercial. Yeah, these lands were annexed for largely industrial purposes in 2020, I do believe. And this is our future growth area to the east and to the north. I can't remember who someone focused growing to the west. Generally, we're not going to grow to the west for a couple of reasons. One, we kind of try to plan out with the county 50 years in advance which way we're going to grow. But the other reason is the sour gas wells in the area. The Alberta Energy Regulator has a map of all former and current active gas sites. You have to stay upwards of 200 meters away from each of those abandoned or unreclaimed wells, and the West Country, immediately west of Olds, seems to have more of those barriers, natural barriers there. So our future growth areas are directed largely in the east. Residential, we have plenty of residential land left for the foreseeable decades, but probably north would be more ideal, centered around this regional wastewater lift station. I think that was all the notes. Have to take more questions, of course.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and my apologies if I referred to you earlier as Mayor Dahl. I can't remember if I did or not. My apologies. Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to the CEO. You touched on the investment that would be required in the Northeast for sanitary lift pump station. Whether we're developing that area or the Southeast, where the roundabout road is, what would, if anything, be the financial commitment of the town as far as tax and spend? Or would we, be looking for the developer investor through offsite levies or their investment to cover those costs? What would be the burden to the town? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I didn't mean to touch on that as well. And through the chair to Councillor Wilson. Good point, because there are two different scenarios. The Southeast Industrial is already existing largely. There's 1/4 section of land remaining that's unserviced, and then I believe around 40 acres of subdivided lots that aren't serviced. Given it's an existing development and the subdivision process is complete, we are largely on the hook for any improvements there. During the roundabout project, the 68th Street was constructed under the grant agreement with the government, but the sanitary infrastructure wasn't complete. So that's about a $700,000 job, I guess, in connection to service the remaining lots in the Southeast Industrial. That would be the town's cost. We could recoup those via offsite levies in some areas, but we wouldn't get to that full cost recovery. The difference in the Northeast, this is still totally greenfield. We don't own any of the land, and no development is taking place. So they are eligible for offsite levies. I think this 4-acre, I'm ballparking here, but would be in the realm of $15 to $20 million for the entire 600 acres of offsite levies, for example, at full build out. But also the developers, given that it's a new development, would have to pay for those costs up front. Now, they would have to pay for the full 600-acre build-out, but we would also design it in a way where we could at least make it more palatable for future developers to tag on to that existing infrastructure to eventually fully service out those 600 acres. Now, that's not to be said we're putting it all on future developers, that there are other things that can happen, even though they would have to pay up front. We could do agreements such as endeavor to assists agreements, where they front the capital for, let's say, a sanitary lift station, but as other users come on that system, the users contribute to the town, and the town reimburses that developer. But We're not at that stage yet. We do hope in the very near future to have a development announced in this area, but for now, it's just a zoning proposal.
Go ahead, Councilor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. And supplement to the CEO, you touched on it a little earlier. You referenced mixed use, residential, industrial, commercial. With this change, that would not preclude some combination of industrial and commercial. I just want to make sure that we could have a mix of true industrial and then some small, medium, or perhaps even large commercial. Those could coexist, correct?
And through the chair, that's correct, yes. That, and even in the northern parts of this map, not within the checkered line boundary, we're still technically permitted to have many commercial uses in the updated zoning from 2025. But again, the caveat is the residential can't be there just because of the proximity requirements between industrial and residential. And regarding mitigation in general, I would agree the aesthetics is a main issue. We have to ensure we mitigate during the development process. And also there's a stretch of perhaps 7 to 10 homes along 2A as well that should development take place, that noise impacts and light impacts have to be addressed as well. But that comes during the development permit or development agreement stage, not necessarily right now.
Thank you. Councilor Cook.
Councillor Wilson already touched on my question.
Councilor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. And through to our planner, Mr. Sloan. Could you walk me through some enforcement mechanisms that we might have for a developer that comes by and promises trees, promises this beautiful frontage, it just fails to deliver? Can we be sold such a bill of goods and then they just turn around and not perform? What can we do in those cases? Thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yeah, we do have, we do take security deposits during the development permit process. For a half section, for instance, if it were the entire southern 2 sections here that we're mostly discussing today, that security deposit would be in the range of up to $2 to $3 million that we would take, that's returned to them at once all the buildings are completed, the landscaping is completed. So when we're talking about scales of quarter sections, we do have quite a bit of leverage in terms of the money we're holding that they would forfeit if they don't complete that work. So that is the biggest one, but also there are, if they don't meet other conditions of their development permit relating to landscaping or the buildings or the parking lots or anything, then those are other reasons for us to withhold returning that deposit. So that's the big one. And then, of course, there are stop orders could be issued if there's work that is done differently to what's approved or unapproved. And stop orders can be enforced by us perhaps hiring somebody to go in and do that work if it's landscaping, to finish it and then send them the bill for it. So there's quite a few different enforcement measures we could take.
Thank you for that. Any further questions or comments from council? Councilor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to the planning officer. So once we get past this, whatever it looks like, and I don't know if we're at a development permit stage, building permits, talk a little bit kind of building on what does it look like, public engagement, public input, if required, and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Chair. That does depend on the development. So if I'm looking at the list right now of the list of uses in the light industrial district. There are a number of permitted uses, gas stations, light industrial office, that for a permitted use development permit, if there are no variances, there isn't much in the way of engagement or consultation. The list of discretionary uses is much longer, and that's where you see more of the what has been deemed more impactful or perhaps intrusive types of uses. And discretionary uses, there is a circulation to area landowners similar to this process for the bylaw for feedback prior to a decision being made, so prior to the issuance of a permit. And then for all permits, permitted or discretionary, after a permit has been issued, there's a 3-week appeal period where somebody can file an appeal of an approval. That appeal period is also for the applicant if they want to appeal certain conditions of a permit, but that goes for 3 weeks. For permitted uses, the reasons for appeal are more limited to errors in process, but for the discretionary uses, they can really be about anything, including any of the reasons somebody might not want that use to be next door. So the more impactful uses, the more public consultation steps there are.
C.O. Williams?
Yes, and through you to also Councillor Wilson's questions on the data center piece, which making the rounds. There is another layer on top of our development permits, which in industrial areas, data centers are a discretionary use. So they would follow the process Councillor Kyle Sloan mentioned. But also they're given their natural gas components as well. They follow the Alberta Utility Commission's engagement model as well, which was presented on, I think, at least once already in my lengthy presentation a few weeks back. And those are, say, overlapping processes because we aren't involved in the AUC process. That's between the developer, the community, and it makes more sense to align our efforts during the event as well, because there are different approvals we're responsible for, such as light issues, light pollution, and we overlap on noise, for instance. Then obviously infrastructure and roads and that, but generally those get worked out in a greenfield development like this fairly similarly. Again, no development permits are available yet and have been submitted yet for this parcel, nor for the data center that was announced in December. But once that happens, our processes will take over, but also those data center developers could also apply to the AUC to begin their process. And that, if you recall, was under Rule 007 of the AUC's public consultation process. So hopefully.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Krush.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to CAO Williams. I just have one final question. I'm generally in favor of this change, especially if we can nail down the aesthetics of it. You said that this was originally zoned in 2014, I believe you said, and sitting empty for that long. Your opinion that without changing this small sliver, that this area is just locked into purgatory, and by changing this, it'll unlock potential development, but without it, it's just...
Councillor Cruz. So the land was annexed, 3/4 of the 4 quarters was annexed in 2020. The southwest quarter has been with the town for, I believe, 40 years or so. That southwest quarter is where all development needs to start. That's where the sanitary and water connections are. So without, at very least, the 2A boundary being rezoned into industrial, there's just no demand for commercial. When we did the engagement for this area in 2023 under the ASP process and then finalized in 2024, aesthetics, highway aesthetics were the main thing, of course, as Kyle mentioned, but also the market was looking a lot different coming at that stage out of the pandemic as well, where retail seemed to be picking up a little bit more steam, but we've seen the demand drop off a cliff and we can't see it coming back. But again, giving this industrial zoning is now more of a hybrid between commercial and light industrial. We think it strikes that balance, but you're right. If industrial isn't added to this use, these four quarters just can't realistically develop.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right, I look to Mr. Sloan, our planner, for any final comments. Going forward.
No further comment from me, thank you.
Thank you for that. So with that, at 1:57, I call the public hearing, bylaw 2026-02, Northeast Area Structure Plan, 2024-38 Amendment, and bylaw 2026-03 Land Use Bylaw closed. And that's at 1:56. Right? So with that, drawing the public hearing to a close, then I will ask for a motion to come on the floor, please. Councillor Krusch.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I have motion that bylaw 2026-02 amendment to the Northeast Area Structure Plan 2024-38 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cook?
Third
Oh,
reading.
no, were comments or questions? No? Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Daly. Just a comment to Mr. Sloan. I like the idea that there is a provision in there, quite a large provision, for landscaping to make sure that whatever is behind is going to be hidden so that we have still a nice entryway into our community, because I think that is a big issue. So I am in favor of the industrial, however.
Thank you. So any other comments? Okay, I then ask the question. All those in favor? Unanimous? That motion carries. I ask for the second motion. Councillor Cook.
And I move that bylaw 2026-02, amendment to Southeast Area Structure Plan 2024-38, be given third reading as presented.
Is that good? It should be northeast.
Oh, northeast. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, motion on the floor. Any comments? None? I ask the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Now for bylaw 2026-03. I ask for the question. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that bylaw 2026-03, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you for that. Any comments, concerns? Seeing none, I ask the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. It is passed. Thank you. And now for the last motion, Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly. I move that bylaw 2026-03, amendment to land use bylaw 2026-14 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. Any comments? Concerns? Okay, I ask the question. All those in favor? I'm sorry, could I see that again, please? You guys are getting quick on the draw. Thank you. All right, passed unanimously. Thank you. So that this concludes our land use bylaw public hearings and motions. I'd like to thank everybody that showed up in the gallery and with your comments and with your ideas moving forward. It's very much appreciated, and I like seeing everybody come out and be part of the process. Your concerns have been heard, and as you heard through our discussion afterwards, whether it be aesthetics or whether it be infrastructure, those items are on our mind as well. So thank you again for being here today. All right, we move on to number 4, delegations. Everybody good to go? All right, so 4.1 is delegation, Hope for Mount View Kids. Turn it over to Lisa.
Well, thank you so much, Council, for letting us speak today. I'm here with a few people. I'm Lisa Nicholson. I know some of you know me already and have heard me present before, but I'm the founder of Hope for MVC Kids Society. And with me, I have Stacey. She's the Grants Director. I have Sue. She's the Corporate Engagement Director. And I have Richard, who is the Volunteer Director with me here today. So the meeting today is we're going around to all of the towns with our annual report, and we want council with information about the organisation and Hope. Additionally, it would be great appreciative the opportunity to learn whether there's any other municipal resources or funding supports that we've not explored before that might be able to assist our organisation. So specifically, we're interested in understanding whether there are municipal level funding programs that we could apply for in support of the ongoing programs or the Home for Hope project. And I'm going to turn it over to Sue now.
With children in medical need across Mountain View County, supporting families and children in medical need. We have 7 programs that we offer. Program 1 offers assistance to local children who are hospitalized. This includes support for parking, meals, fuel, and sibling care. For long-term hospital stays, additional help may be available, including rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. Program 2 provides support for local children needing adaptive equipment for home or school, which is not covered by other funding sources. Program 3 assists children who require home modifications due to illness or disability, also not covered by other resources. Program 4 helps local children needing therapeutic services such as counseling, occupational therapy, physical therapy, mental health support, or alternative therapies that are not covered by health insurance. Program 5 extends assistance for prescription medications that aren't covered by health insurance. Program 6 offers support, advocacy, and information to families navigating a child's illness or disease. With the personal experience of our board members, we understand the challenges faced and can guide families to additional resources and support. And Program 7, launched January 15, 2024, provides assessment support. It assists children requiring assessments, including psychoeducational, evaluations, psychological assessments, and IQ tests. This program is offered on a limited basis as funds allow. And I'll turn it over to Stacey.
Thanks, Sue. I'd like to draw your attention to pages 4 and 5 of our annual report and highlight a few of our program summaries. So one thing I'd like to highlight is that the amounts given per town in this financial year, our grand total was over $78,000, and to Old specifically was over $34,000. The number of applications that we've seen per town since we began is 71 for Olds. Total amounts given per town since we began is over 401,000, and 138,000 of that being to Olds. I'd also like to highlight that the program again, we have 201 applications distributed over 400,000 families with children in medical continue to meet critical gaps in care. Thanks for your time, and I'll pass it over to Rich.
Thank you. Hopefully you won't need closed captioning for my awful accent. I'm going to highlight Programme 7. In 2025, Hope for MVC Kids Society reintroduced Programme 7. Assessments to address the continuing need for timely and accessible developmental and psychological evaluations for children within our region. Persistent wait times, averaging up to 3 years, along with high cost of private assessments, have created substantial barriers for families seeking timely support for their children. The program delivery and funding applications reopened in January 15, 2025, and were accepted as a first come, first served basis until the annual allocation was fully distributed. A total of $49,488.31 in assistance was provided, supporting 18 children through this program. Eligible families could receive up to $3,000, including GST, after application of any private health care coverage. Required documentation included a professional recommendation for the assessment and formal cost estimate. Programme 7 served families across multiple areas within the region. 9 applications from Olds, 5 from the further county, from Carstairs 3 applications, and Didsbury 1 application. Applications may originate from any community at any time based on need and available resources. Early access to developmental and psychological assessments is essential for ensuring children receive appropriate support at home, in school, and within the broader community. These assessments are often required to access educational accommodations, therapeutic programs, government-funded services, and without timely evaluations, children may experience delays in developmental, increased emotional and mental strain, and barriers that affect long-term outcomes. Hope for MVC Kids remains committed to continuing this limited program to meet ongoing community needs. However, efforts to secure local grant funding were unsuccessful. Municipal funders indicated that healthcare funding and service delivery fall under the jurisdiction of the provincial government and therefore lie outside municipal mandate. While this position reflects governmental structure, it does not address the significant and complex challenges faced by families in our communities, particularly those who cannot wait years for assessments that are essential to their children's well-being. The gap highlights the urgent need for collaborative solutions and sustainable funding models to ensure that children receive timely and appropriate evaluations. In conclusion, Programme 7 continues to play a critical role in bridging service gaps for families facing long waits, high assessment costs. Hope for MVC Kids Society remains dedicated to support children's development and emotional well-being, and will continue advocating for funding mechanisms that reflect the realities and the needs of the families we serve.
Thank you. And now there is an addendum that I did update the annual report regarding the Home for Hope, now that we're looking for a new space. So I just wanted to give an overview of what we're looking for. The Home for Hope is envisaged as a safe, inclusive and accessible community hub for families caring for children with medical needs across Mountain View County. While we previously explored establishing the Home for Hope in a specifically space, we have since determined that location was not operationally viable for our organisation. Our commitment to creating the Home for Hope, however, remains strong. Our updated goal is to secure a right-sized, accessible space that aligns with our capacity as a volunteer, completely operated charity that allows us to open our doors to families in a sustainable and timely way. What the Home for Hope will be is will provide families with a welcoming, dignified place to meet privately with our team, support navigating medical, financial and emotional challenges, connections to other lifespan, health and community-based resources, and a calm and supportive environment during some of the life's most difficult moments. For over 13 years, Hope for MVC Kids has supported families wherever we could, in coffee shops, parking lots, and public spaces. Far from ideal when families are facing medical crisis. A dedicated space will allow us to serve families with greater privacy, consistency, and care. And what we're looking for is one accessible room to serve as the Home for Hope, an additional office at the same location to be used as a boardroom, and eventually, hopefully, for future paid staff, so we can keep up with the demand. Access a bathroom that could be a shared facility. The space may be donated or offered at a reasonable non-profit rate, and utilities can be covered by the organisation. Community impact. The Home for Hope will provide the centralised, accessible point of support for families with medically complex children, improve the coordination of family health and community resources, strengthen the family resilience and community connection, and support long-term sustainability and volunteer engagement. And then it just goes along the ways for help, which is donate or offer space, share a story if you know anyone who has a space available. And then I'm just going to pass it over to Stacey.
Okay, we're almost done, I promise. We just want to highlight our strategic goals and progress. Since 2024, the board spent a full day prior to me joining to go over the key focus areas and progress. So to highlight those are volunteers. So just to develop more guidance and a handbook and enhance the volunteer sign-up process. Transition to potential paid positions. If we are able to establish the Home for Hope, then we would have full-time staff available to be there, but we will require space to do that. Without that, we are relying solely on volunteer hours, and most of us are full-time working people with other commitments, so that limits us and our availability to the people in the community in need. Supporting growth, appoint a second applications director to alleviate unsustainable volunteer hours, which we have completed, and funding, increased corporate sponsorship, as well as potentially find a donation platform and establish clear spending priorities, which is ongoing. Further training and development to create onboarding and mentorship for the volunteer positions. And proactive planning remains critical to ensuring the sustainability of Home for Hope Mountain View Kids. While some priorities are still in progress, significant steps such as the Home for Hope project and the addition of the second applications director have strengthened our foundation for future growth. We welcome any questions about these priorities and look forward to building on our achievements in 2026.
And that's it for our presentation, and then I'll just open in case anyone has any questions or comments.
Thank you very much for that. Very informative and lots of good things that you're doing within the community. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Mrs. Nicholson. Thank you very much. That's a very good presentation, and it's got a lot of valuable information for us to digest and review for sure. Just maybe a two-part question, and I don't know if you can answer this or it might be through our administration, but I'm assuming that you have contacted our FCSS group in town, and they have been or will be able to maybe help you assist you in finding a space that would be suitable for you?
We did approach them in the beginning, and they said that there was nothing that they could help us through the FCSS office. That was one of our first when we were searching places to stop by.
Supplemental?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I wasn't sure if you, or if maybe they help you find a space, because sometimes they have that information available to them. Second part of my question, I guess, would be what size of a space are you looking for? Because maybe perhaps through people viewing our meeting today, someone may come up and say, oh, gee, I've got an ideal location for you. So
Absolutely. So the space just needs to be, imagine just a very average size living room. We really wanted to make it a home. So families would come in and there'd be a comfy couch and sensory toys for the children and just one desk. We tried to make it, what the vision was as homely as possible so that they could come through just this difficult time, sit down, children would be occupied. So that would be ideal number one. Secondary to be that would be an ideal space that we could have a board meeting at, or maybe there's a board on site, so we could then use it when we had our meetings. We are using the community connections, which we're very, very grateful for. But all of our board members, sometimes it's just nice to go to one space, not have to worry about picking up a key. We're trying to limit what they have to do. And then the other part would be an office space where we would like to have, that would be the icing on the cake, office for eventually we want an executive director and a family applications assistant. That would be what the goal is in the 5-year plan, and they would have somewhere that they could obviously run their offices from. If we can't get that, we can run offices out of the living room space, but we also want it to be, it's not ideal because if families are coming in crisis, we want them to be able to have all the time they need and not rush them through and not go, well, I've got to get through my email. So it's not ideal, but we would work with that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And a key part is accessibility. One of the key things for us is we do home renovations, making homes accessible. We won accessibility awards from the province. And so if we don't actually speak what we do in our own space, it's not good PR. So, and I believe there's another question. Sorry.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Lisa. So first, just a tip of the hat to you and your organization. You're clearly and obviously filling a void in the community and providing a critical service based on the numbers of the families you're helping. I was at your fundraising event in the fall there at the Willow Barn, I think, in partnership with the Rotary. And the stories from a few of the folks there that spoke, certainly heartwarming. Just a question, though, on page 38, the financials. Like, your revenues were down, and hence your ability to provide assistance to families were down. Was that just a timing thing? Is that cyclical with your fundraising and events? Or is that a trend that's going to continue and put more pressure on you guys?
More pressure. So we have an average of 20% increase each year. And this is why we had to do our strategic planning, is we know that we're unsustainable. And we had those really awful conversations about the fact we have a burnt out board, burnt out supporters. Everybody believes in the organization and are steadfast and strong with the cause, but they also have a reality. And so doing this 13 years ago and giving $12,000 out. I think the second year, don't quote me exactly on this, but I think it was about $26,000 to now going up to a budget of $169,000 this year. We're probably pretty close to $250,000 a year, and there's a reality. So we knew that we needed to put a permanent place, and also paid staff, or we have to fold. And that is not something we want to do. We don't want to take this away from the community. It doesn't belong to anybody but the community. So this is our last, let's try and get this done, because we don't want to be coming to say we're having to close our doors. That's the last thing we want to happen with our organization. Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to come here. Love the new space. So
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? See none. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for all you do in the community for you and your board.
Awesome.
Very much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, with that, I'll ask for a motion. Councillor Cook?
I move that council receive the presentation from Hope for MVC Kids for information.
Thank you very much for that. I'll ask the question. All those in favor? It just passed unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, our next delegation, 4.2, is the Grizzlies Hockey Club. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for your presentation. CAO Williams for introduction.
Thank you once again, Mayor Daly, and I'm happy to introduce Grizzlies owner Mo Jamal with us. He wants to speak to council and introduce himself and chat about how his inaugural season as Grizzlies owner is going. So please, Mo, step up to the podium.
Awesome. Well, public speaking, not my greatest forte, but thank you for taking the time today, Mayor Daly and the council members for hearing me out. Not really here to kind of ask for anything, just kind of wanted to give the State of the Union of the Grizzlies in my first year, as was mentioned. And so kind of wanted to run through a few things. Became the owner of the Grizzlies January 10th. Got kind of approved by the Alberta Junior Hockey League Board in the spring of that year, and so kind of been running with that from there. And like was introduced, Mo Jamal, my background is in business. My dad and I started a small marketing company 25 years ago, which I've been able to run, and it's kind of given me the ability to kind of pursue my passion, which is really hockey and development of young men. So for those of you not familiar, the Alberta Junior Hockey League has players from the age of 16 to 20 years old that we have in town. The franchise has been here since anybody can remember. Had some really great years in the 90s, some local ownership over the last 12 years. Kind of a little background on that. There was an ownership group two ownership groups before myself. The first ownership group had reached insolvency with the league about 5 or 6 years ago, and a local conglomerate of owners, about 17 people, kind of took on the responsibility of running the team and saved the team from not being existing anymore. And so they took it over the last 5 or 6 years. They kind of amassed about a $650,000 debt. And again, had reached a point where they were pretty successful in their businesses, but running a junior hockey club was not their strength, and they really weren't accounting for that when they first saved the team. And so they did put it up for sale, and that's where I kind of came in last winter. We cleared up the debts and were able to kind of keep the team here. And what we were really hoping for is a strong community connection, do things a little differently, a little structured leadership that we could provide, add some investment, and hopefully stabilize the franchise. And for the last 8 or 9 months, I believe we've been kind of doing everything that we possibly can from that perspective. Some of the challenges we faced in our first year is no matter how hard we've tried, there's been low and stagnant attendance impacting our ticket revenue. Ongoing volunteer shortages, now requiring basically for us to pay game staff to come out and volunteer, which is not something junior hockey can afford to do or can be part of. Our billet stipends in the community are at $650 a month per player, which is the highest in the Alberta Junior Hockey League in order to secure housing for our players, some of which have to drive in from Carstairs and Didsbury on a daily basis to attend practice. Obviously, we're dealing with the smallest population now in the Alberta Junior Hockey League as well, just approaching about 10,000 people. So that continues to be a challenge. We are one of 3 teams currently charging a player development fee, which was not something that was part of the junior hockey scene as early as 4 years ago. And so we're now one of 3 or 4 teams that we have to do that. And how that kind of impacts things is when you're trying to recruit a top-end player to come here to play for the Olds Grizzlies, if there's an organization that he can go to, play in a newer facility, not have to pay a player development fee or can't afford to pay a player development fee, they are choosing other destinations other than the Grizzlies, which later on will go into hand in hand with how the team performs on the ice. There's a direct correlation of not being able to get the better players to come. This year's current projected loss is going to be between $125,000 and $150,000. Our season ends on March 14th, so not all those costs are accrued, but we're heading in that direction. Some of the value we feel like the Grizzlies bring, obviously, is the players are actively involved in schools, in Olds minor hockey practices. We've been out to assisted living homes. We've been part of town events. We really wanted the players to come in this year and start to really make that community connection that I think has been lacking from what all our research told us. I do believe the players have done a great job of that. Our billet families, the people around town, the schools have all been very complimentary of the players. I do believe they really lived up to that part when we first recruited the players and had them come over. Through other economic impact studies, it's very clear that a junior hockey club of our size will add about $1.5 to $2 million to the town of Olds, just from revenue within the rink, revenue for when we bring tournaments from out-of-town visiting teams, our players living in town, the salaries we pay, where they live, they eat, the hotels, the tournaments that we put on throughout the year in the spring. So the economic impact is pretty significant. From a competitive standpoint that we just talked about a little bit, the facilities, we've got an aging arena. The dressing room isn't what it is nowadays. We have other teams in the AJHL that have renovated or newer facilities being built. And unfortunately, that does play an impact along with the player development fee that we've put in place that will affect our recruiting situation. And of course, everybody wants to see a winning team on the ice, and we all want that, and that just hasn't been relevant through 12 or 13 years and now a third ownership group, that it's been really hard to turn that around without the ability to address some of these concerns. For a path forward, like I said, we're a nonprofit organization. I'm not here. I know from talking to people within the town, there's already enough burden on this town for businesses, for people that require funds, for maybe we just saw the previous organization that just presented that are doing such wonderful things in the community that it's hard to say junior hockey should be part of that. So we're not here to ask for anything. It's just more for a path going forward that if there's not a way to bring people into our games on a steady everyday basis through our season ticket drive this spring or summer, financially there just isn't a way to sustain the Olds Grizzlies within the town of Olds. And that's just the reality we've kind of now come to after all these years of different ownership groups. Today was just a transparent, hoping to give some information about how the Grizzlies are, where they're at, what we're thinking, just so there's no, don't want to hear rumors or things in town or whatever else. Since I've come on to board, I've kind of heard a lot of odd things, and so wanted to make sure that everyone had a chance to hear it from me directly, that our hope is to find a way to continue to connect with the community, to have the community support the players, which in turn can continue to leave us in the town of Olds and have an economic impact, have a community engagement impact to the town. So again, I'm humbled to be able to present to you guys today and just talk to you guys honestly about where the team is within the town. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jamal. Yes, I'll open it up for questions. If there's anybody that's got questions or concerns, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you too, Mr. Jamal. I understand and recognize the challenges you've had. I billeted hockey players for quite a few years, in total, including affiliates and new recruits and regular and spring camp and main camp. I probably had over 56 players stay in my house at one point in time. Throughout the whole experience was always very positive. There was a few came through that, you weren't very pleased with, but overall at the time the coaching staff did take over, and they were a good bunch of young men, and I would certainly like to see that continue in the community. And it's definitely a rebuilding time for you, which is, we see it in the NHL all the time. So, your main challenge is that we are a smaller community compared to the other AJHL teams within the league. But I do want to make my final comment, though, that I have been hearing through the community the positive impact the players have had in this last year. And, that's kudos to you, gentlemen, and to your coaching staff for bringing these players along. And any experience I've had, it's been very positive with these young players in the last little while. So I just want to say thank you for what you've done to date, and hopefully you have success in the future.
Appreciate you saying that.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Mr. Jamal, so in your statement, you stated that the 26-27, if those years, if it doesn't turn around, then you will not have a choice but to sort of dissolve or move the Grizzlies to a different location. So has that already been presented to the AJHL board?
I wanted to start with here in terms of the town. I hope you guys. Thank you for the question. I wanted to start here in the town. I've had some preliminary oversights. Obviously, when you're a new owner in the AJHL, They do tend to want to ask you questions on how things are going and whatnot. They understand the struggles we're facing. They understood that, coming through this process in previous ownership groups and what they had dealt with. But I wanted to kind of come here first and then kind of start the process of just transparency and knowing where the team stands. I think through this process, there will be a meeting with the AJHL to let them know that, if our season ticket drive doesn't turn into something that relocation application will be made for March of next year. And that's when we would be kind of looking at doing things for the following season. It is still not our primary goal. The reason I bought the Grizzlies here in Olds is I have ties, my parents, my immediate family, everybody is in Calgary. This allows me to get up here 45 minutes every day. It is literally the only location that was attractive to me when I had the opportunity. I know I'm not local, which sometimes I kind of hear about might be a disadvantage, but to be honest with you, there were already 2 local ownerships prior to mine that were from here, and they ended up in maybe a similar position. And so, this is the primary spot that I want things to work. I just don't know how to reach the 9,300 people to get 700 people to come out to a game regularly for us. I am out of ideas, which I am not generally used to in the business world. I can usually work my way through problems. But I am stuck. We are basically in the same spot as we were last year, but this has way more structure, has way more leadership. We have everything in place, and yet our finances are no better off, and that's very, very troubling, right? So, to your question, the AJ hasn't completely known, but they know the struggles that I'm facing currently.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Mr. Jamal, and certainly appreciate your efforts to come into the town and take on the challenge with the Grizzlies. And you're a longtime hockey guy from your academy days and beyond in Calgary. Is the magic elixir simply the product on the ice? And if you had a better product, it's like if you build it, they will come? Or is it more complex than that? Because, you reference 750 season ticket goal. I'm not sure on a game-by-game basis what your attendance is at, but and I'm also wondering, with some stability since you've taken over in January and your connections, what's the perception of the recruits, when you're hosting your development camp in the summer and so on? Are those players coming? Because they have a choice of 12 total teams just within the AJHL alone, right? So what does that process look like?
Yeah, so, the thing I hear most is, hey, Mo, if you start winning, the people will come. And my argument is that, we have been, I'd say, our season has been tailored to 2 seasons. We were 1-7 to start, not very competitive. We made a lot of changes. And then we got really competitive for about 30 games where we were winning more than we were losing. And even in that little influx, we saw less people attend our games than when we were losing 1-7 to start the season. And so I do believe if you have a winning, consistent product, that's going to obviously draw interest. And I am a big believer in that. So I'm not saying it has no part of it. What I'm struggling with is if we continue to charge players to pay $5,000 to $6,000 to play here, if they come here and it's, in comparison to other locations from a dressing room, from an arena, from an atmosphere, from all of that perspective just isn't there, how are you convincing the best players to eventually come here and recruit, even if they want to play here, right? And so what are the differences we can bring to the table? And right now there's not enough of those that when we've gone for a really good player, they've either chosen to play for the Canucks in Calgary or Grand Prairie, or, we can identify the best level of talent and we can give them better opportunities than other places can because we're a younger team and they're going to play more and all those other things that matter to players. But reality is when they look at it long-term wise, they're like, this place averages 700 people, Olds gets 100, right? They get to play in a new building. They live right in town. They don't have to pay that $5,000 to $6,000 to be here. Those are all real challenges that are going to have to go hand in hand with winning, right? And so I think it's chicken before the egg kind of situation here too is, if we get competitive and we're proud of the product we're putting on the ice, we're just going to need people to support. And to be honest, I think it's changed, right? Like in '93 when they were going through the Centennial Cup and they're packing 1,400 people into the building, it's different. There's just more to do, right? Kids have more access to I'd rather stay home and play online with my friends or do whatever. The draw on the one day off when you're not running around after the kids and stuff, it's hard to say I'm going to go to a Grizzlies game. Or we have a bit of an elderly population that it's hard to get to the rink. It's not easy. There's not transport. There's not different things that matter, right? And so where are the people going to come from is my biggest concern. Is even if we're winning, who's coming to the games, right, at the end of the day? And just a quick little story, it was Olds Minor Hockey Day. Minor Hockey Days are the biggest draws pretty much around the AJHL. When you have one of these, it's your highest attendance days. We held one here, and it was our lowest attended day, right? Like that's how, and it was free to get in. We've now had 3 corporate partners that have stepped up during the year. They bought out the arena on those nights, and we've let people in for free. And that's when we can finally get 500 or 600 people out to a game. Our average attendance is are under 100, under 200 on paid attendance. It's over 200 with comped tickets for players and billets and families and stuff like that. But paid attendance is under 100, right? And you go to Canmore and they have 1,000 people at $20 a person. It would take us an entire season to collect that much in ticket revenue, and they do it in a game, right? So yeah.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Mr. Jamal, don't most AJHL teams, the players have to pay? Maybe not as much, but that's my understanding, is that most of these teams now, it's almost like you pay to play. And I mean, it's hard for Olds to compare themselves to, the Brookses of the world and the Fort Macs of the world, because there's just so much money there. Totally. And there's really nothing else to do in those communities. Whereas in Olds, they can go to Red Deer, they can do Rebel games, they can do Flame games, only an hour and a half from Edmonton. I hear your struggle, and it has been a struggle since the 90s. Yep. So, but don't most AJHL teams, the players have to pay a certain amount to play?
Yeah, so thank you again for that question as well. Basically, a player development fee, or what some teams will call a billet fee, those are in place. It's just not prevalent through most. I would say it's a lower number than there are greater, right? So Fort Mac is not paid, Grand Prairie is not paid. Calgary had a small billet fee, but since they held the Centennial Cup last year, they've kind of put away a large slush fund, so they didn't pay this year. And so as you move through the league, Lloyd, you're not paying to play there. And so I totally agree. I mean, it's the whole, I'm totally, since I've been here, I've understood the struggles that, and that's where I'm coming from, is I just don't get how we're going to, segregate, like ourselves from other teams, is we are just in that bad a spot, both from population, nothing wrong with the town or anything like that. The small town's been unbelievable. The business community, I will say, over the last 2 years, we had $0 in corporate sponsorships. This year, we're over $250,000. Like, they've done an amazing job. It's just hard to keep hitting the same people when they're so exhausted from giving to one organization. And so there's been a lot of great stories. The small town feel here, I tell this story all the time. I was there on a Saturday. We're trying to take a sign down, and in Calgary, if you call somebody for a sign removal on a Saturday, you're looking at $3,000-4,000. This one guy brings his thing in, and the sign's off, and people are just willing to help and support, and you ask them how much, and it's just not even a question. It doesn't run like that. The small town has really opened my eyes on how life should be. This is one of the greatest towns I can never talk about. The people have been amazing to me. The issue is I just don't know where we get more people from to come to the game when we're so centrally located to a lot of things that you mentioned as well, right? And so when you're giving away tickets for free and you can't get people to come, that's a problem, right?
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Just one last quick question, maybe a second last quick question. So as far as the on ice goes, the hockey, is this about where you thought the team would be at this stage? I don't know, you're like 2/3 of the way through the season. You're the tale of 2 seasons. As far as your rebuild, retool, is this kind of what you were expected in the first year, or?
It's really hard for me when you're in the sports world to say, you're 11-25, and yeah, we're happy where we're at. No, I mean, we wanted to be more competitive. We wanted to be closer to a playoff spot. I think the start sends us back, and then we retool and we get a lot younger. So we have the youngest roster in the AJHL right now. And nightly, if you watch our games, we tend to lose by a goal or win by a goal we're very much competitive in the town, and then or in the league. And then we did end up losing our best player about 12 games ago. He left for the BCHL. We had a 20-year-old who went to play for the Colts, wanted to extend his junior career till 21. So yeah, I mean, it set us back. But I think what we are in is we're in a good spot. Last year we had no returning players. That we started with returning players from last year's team. We're down to one from that team from last year, so it's been a complete overhaul. What we're happy about is we're projecting to have 15 or 16 returning guys next year that will take that next step, and I expect us to be highly in a competitive playoff race for next season, assuming we can hang on to those players coming back. So yeah, we're not happy where we're at, but I think we're on track of where we thought we'd be in year 2 for sure.
Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you very much for your presentation today, Mr. Jamal. Really appreciate it, and I can sympathize with you as well. I'm trying to push as many people as I can to the game, but yeah, I hope it does get better for you. Your team is a great asset to this town, and I hope we don't lose it. I really do. So,
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and thank
you
you
have
for the town.
my support,
Appreciate that.
personally.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too. All right, so with that, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I make the motion that council accepts the Olds Grizzlies presentation for information.
Thank you for that. Any comments? I call for the question then. All those in favor? Councillor Blatz? Yep, unanimous. Thank you for that. Okay, we move on to bylaws, number 5.1, bylaw 2026-06, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. I turn it over to C.L. Williams for introduction.
Thank you once again. Mayor Daley, I'm just going to pass this to Mr. Sloan to walk us through.
And thank you. This first bylaw for first reading comes, I would say there's 2 points in the land use bylaw where you see a higher volume of amendments, and that's with a very aging bylaw that needs a large number of amendments to stay current, and also with a new bylaw as administration tweaks it and gets used to how it functions. So, and that latter situation is where this one comes from. So with the new land use bylaw coming in late 2025, we've been keeping track of minor changes that we would like to make, but we don't want to come here every single time there's something identified. So we wait, and we've, in this amendment, we've waited until we can cluster some proposed changes into one amendment and then bring it forward. So this one breaks down into 2 categories. The first being some changes for accessory building regulations. The one being to improve clarity on civic addressing. So the way the bylaw is currently worded, we require a house number on the house facing the street. But it doesn't specifically say that the garage on the lane needs an address identifier. And we do want that, because if emergency services are called to a lane, they still want to be able to see those numbers on the garages and know where they are. So we want to add that clarity to make it clear that front or back, we want to see the house numbers if there's a building. Also for accessory buildings, this is something we actually did not change from the previous bylaw, and that is the maximum height for residential accessory buildings being 4.5 meters, roughly 15 feet, or no taller than the primary, the principal building being mainly the house. However, in the new bylaw, we didn't have wording, or we don't have wording in the new bylaw that specifies this is for residential accessory buildings. So we get applications for industrial accessory buildings that previously didn't have a height limit other than what is in the district itself, in the industrial district. And now the way the bylaw is worded, they're supposed to be only 4.5 meters tall. Well, most of the cold storage, tent structures you see in industrial areas, things like that, many of those are over 4.5. We don't want to prohibit things like that from being erected here. So we want to clarify the maximum height of 4.5 meters is for residential accessory buildings. Non-residential ones can exceed that height to whatever the district says is the maximum height for buildings. And then finally, for accessory buildings, that maximum height regulation was listed twice. It was item number 7 in that section and 10. Basically the same wording in both, so we'll remove the second one. The other category of changes proposed here relates to multi-dwelling developments. So the first being specifying that there is a regulation in the residential landscaping regulations that says front yard hardscaping, being patios, driveways, any hard surface that's impermeable to rain, for instance, is a maximum of 50% of the front yard. That was intended for duplexes, townhomes, where you're driving down a residential street. We want the front yards to have the landscaping and only have 50% be driveways, hard patios. We've had situations where we told somebody, no, your front yard can't be entirely driveway, and then they apply for a patio permit that they would maybe park on. So we wanted to be clear. Now, in multifamily dwellings, when you think of larger apartment buildings, you'll see they have a parking lot out front. And while we do still have landscaping requirements for both the overall parcel area and for parking lots, we do have special landscaping requirements. The intent of this 50% ratio was not intended for that. So this is adding clarity there. And then lastly, in the mixed-use node district, and MUN, which replaced the R3 district in the old bylaw, we have broken down the setbacks depending on the type of building. So where many districts just have, this is what your side yard can be, this is your front and rear. This land use district, for front and rear, we broke that down into the height because it's a district that allows apartment buildings, but also duplexes and things like that. And those should be treated differently. But what we inadvertently left in was a minimum 4 meter minimum side yard for all development. So in this district, on a lot, for instance, that can have a duplex or fourplex, if you take 4 meters away from both sides, you can build a building on some smaller lots that's 2 meters wide. So that was unintentional. We've broken that down into different regulations above 10 meters, roughly 2 stories, and for buildings below 10 meters. So that apartment buildings do have a greater side yard requirement, but duplexes, fourplexes, smaller buildings can be 1.5 meters. So this is just first reading. Apologies if I went too in detail there. But I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. A very detailed description. Much appreciated. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. To Mr. Sloan, do you think going forward we are able to have what the old bylaw said in here and then redline that out and then have what the new one is? Because I know when I was reading the agenda, I was going back to the big land use bylaw page versus coming back and forth. It would simplify it for me. I don't know about the rest of you. However, it would make it simpler for me to have what the old is and what we're changing rather than just what we're going to change it to. Is that possible to do that?
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. Yeah, absolutely. That's something we can do. I can have an attachment showing the red line version of the amendments proposed, and then a separate attachment that just shows the final amendment. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, then I will ask for the question or ask for a motion, please. Councillor Batts?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I think I'm on the right one here. I move that bylaw 2026-06 amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you. You were on the right. All right. Are you voting or? Okay. You guys are all jumping the gun here. You must be wanting to get out here. Okay, so now I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next motion, Councillor Taylor.
I'm eager this time. Okay. I move that Monday, February 23rd, 2026 at 1 p.m. in the council chambers to be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2026-06.
Thank you very much for that. Any comment? None? All those in favor? It is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. So that takes us down to item 5.2, bylaw 2026-07, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. Over to you. Mr. Sloan, will you be taking this? Thank you.
Thank you again. This land use bylaw amendment is for the rezoning of northwest quarter of the northeast area structure plan. So the same maps we were looking at earlier for the northwest quarter. Unlike the public hearing and the two bylaws related to that, this one is just a land use bylaw amendment because the northeast area structure plan and the municipal development plan both already identify this as future industrial land. So this is just to rezone this parcel from future urban district. It's just agricultural land right now. To industrial to align with those statutory plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or concerns? Council? Nope. Councillor Kirsch, you got a look on your face. Okay. Can I ask for somebody to make the first motion, please? Councillor Cook.
I move that bylaw number 2026-07, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, I ask the question. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And now for the setting the public hearing, Councillor Kush.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2026-07.
Thank you for that. Any concerns or questions? All right, I then ask for the vote. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much for that. All right, brings us down to item number 6, business. Sponsorship request for Kiwanis Music Festival. I'll turn it over to C.O. Williams for introduction.
Thank you once again, Mayor Daley. This sponsorship request is a recurring ask to council. It has been a $1,200 ask for the last 3 years, I believe. Prior to, I believe, 2023, it was a $1,000 donation. But Kiwanis Performing Arts Festival, held generally annually in March at the CLC Performing Arts Theatre. Great event. I recommend check a couple shows out if you haven't yet. But happy to take questions if there are any.
Councillor Kirsch?
Less of a question, more of a comment. I participated in this festival growing up in town. pretty much every year since I was like 12 or 13 years old. And so I support this as it, my first career choice was sort of pushed by participating in things like this. So I am in favor of this.
Thank you. Would you like to do a little number for us or anything, or? No? Okay. Counselor Cook. Oh, okay. What instrument? Harmonica? Drums? Okay. All right. Counselor Cook.
I have absolutely nothing against the Kiwanis Music Festival. I am just against the essence of council and the town donating towards nonprofits. I think us using essentially our residents' taxes towards a not-for-profit is a way of us taking funds and essentially forcing people to donate to a specific fund without getting the tax benefits of doing so. So I'm absolutely for the Kiwanis Music Festival, but I am against the donation towards them directly.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? Then I need a motion. Counselor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that a one-time donation of $1,200 from Council's general sponsorship funds be approved for the Olds and District Kiwanis Music Festival for Society's 2026 Festival of Performing Arts.
Thank you, Counselor Blatz. Any other comments or concerns? Counselor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Dan Daly. What is all the criteria for these different general sponsorships? Is there like I'm sure I've read it and I'm sure you've told me, but can you refresh my memory, please?
Most definitely through the chair to Councillor Overwater. So Council Policy 803C is the sponsorships policy. At the financial level, the CAO can approve requests up to $500. Everything above $500 comes to council. There is a procedure that more deals with how my office determines requests, and it talks about broad community benefit happening, within the community itself. General criteria like that. But when it comes to council, that above $500, it really is more open to council's adjudication on its benefit. There was talk in recent years about having a more robust conversation on sponsorships because council does it is only a $7,500 line item in our $30 million budget, so it never quite made it to the top of the pile. Then Mountain View Power also has a very similar sponsorship structure as well, where same thing, CAO can approve up to $500, everything else comes forward to council. But to answer your question in a roundabout long way, when it comes to council, it really is how the group feels at any given moment.
Secondary, supplemental?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Yeah, because Mountain View Power just gave them $600 towards tuning of instruments of some sort, right? And this, I am in favor of this, just so you know. I think this music festival, it does a lot of children and older people, do they not, Ben? Go and perform there, and it's quite a big deal for the young people to get up there and do their thing. It's quite a big event, and I'm not really sure how many people actually go to it, but my understanding is it is a large event for a lot of kids in town, and yeah, I'm in support of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Yeah, I don't have concerns supporting this. I would just say, I'm not sure how this Kiwanis Music Festival Society nests within the overarching Kiwanis World group locally here, but if I just look at everything the Kiwanis group and all the service clubs do, to me, this is a small, in the overall scheme of things. Again, we're talking specifically Kiwanis. I assume this society is nested within the Kiwanis overarching group, but when I look at all the benefit the Kiwanis group at the upper level brings, I don't have an issue with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? None? Okay, then I will, I think we have a motion on the floor. So we'll ask for the vote then. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? All right, 6-1 is the count. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. All right. Moves us down to item number 7, council reports. And I can't see any council reports on my machine, but missing mine, I know that for sure. But mine is in now.
They were all published, and my apologies. I did not submit mine in the past week and was away on the weekend, so it will be circulated to all of you very shortly and included to Miss McKinnon for the next council meeting. My apologies.
Thank you for that. Mine I sent in this morning as well. But did you put mine on the site then? My report? Okay. All right. So I did submit my written report to legislative clerk, and I totally forgot mine as well. So it has been a busy couple of months for myself, and as you'll see in the report when it's in the minutes, is that I attended a lot of community events, as well as I met with the mayors of Central Alberta Committee, as well as the caucus for mid-sized towns, and made, of course, a presence there. And it was basically orientation meetings for both of those. And then, of course, the Wastewater Commission, I attended with Councillor Taylor to that, and getting us up to speed with what's going there. That committee's it's in the last minutes of January 12th. I did a few greetings on behalf of the town, the holiday train, the Tree of Remembrance. I went and did an official inspection of the Air Cadets. So that was a learning exercise, which I think maybe some of the deputy mayors should get involved in. It's quite an interesting thing. Lots of history and lots of structure there in those inspections. And brought greetings to Tree of Remembrance. I think I mentioned that. Oh, presented to the guests from the town of Olds for January 2nd. So that was pretty cool. And not as cool as the one that happened last week, but anyway, that's all right. And participated with Councillor Krush on the book reading at the Holy Trinity Church, Holy Trinity School. We went in and read some books, got our reading skills back up to stuff, eh? But attended healthcare municipalities, people in rural Alberta, and a variety of other smaller events as well, which will be in my report. So I'll leave it at that for now. Does anybody else want to give highlights of their report? Councillor Overwater.
No, I don't want to give highlights of my report. However, thank you, Mayor Daly. I'd just like to say that we are hosting 40 healthcare professionals from the Edmonton area this coming weekend. They will arrive Friday, and so we have a welcome dinner for them, and then all day Saturday they're busy in the morning at the hospital. Then we go to the curling rink, lunch, scavenger hunt throughout the downtown core, so they can have see what our town of Olds looks like. And then we're having a dinner with them at the Workland Center, where we will have other dignitaries come, and we'll do a panel. Are you on that panel, CAO Williams? You're going to that. You're invited to that. Are you showing up?
Great. I am out of town this weekend. Otherwise, I would be there.
Well, I believe Mayor Daly is going to be there. And we will have them strategic that care professionals can, converse with them. So that's pretty exciting. And then on Sunday, we take them out to Chantel Thorburn's farm therapy place that she has out, I believe it's out by Carstairs. So Gary Gadet and myself will be with them on the bus and giving them great insights of why they should be in Olds, and maybe we'll throw in a few jokes just to lighten it up a bit. So anyways, that is what's going to happen this weekend. So if you see a bunch of 40 people traipsing around, you'll know what we're doing and why they're running around downtown, because they're having a scavenger hunt. So it'll be interesting.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Anybody else want to bring any highlights? Yes or no? I don't know what that means. All right. So with that then, I'll need a motion on that. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I make the motion that the reports from council boards, committees, and commissions ending January 26, 2026 be received for information.
Thank you for that. Okay. Any further discussion? No? All in favor? Approved. Passed. Thank you very much. All right, moves us down to item number 8. Correspondence and information. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and I will make a motion, and I do have a comment regarding the letter that we received from the lovely lady commending us on the light up in Centennial Park. I too have had several comments and compliments regarding the light up festival and the trees this year, and our park did look spectacular. So along with that then, I move that the correspondence and information report ending January 26, 2026 be received for information.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions? All right. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we move on to item number 9, closed session. So I'd like to address our gallery and our people online. When council goes into closed session for continued participation in the virtual council meeting, stay online in the live stream meeting platform. And the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic. When the graphics are removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. Thank you very much for attending in the gallery, and thank you, Doug, for attending, and also to our online visitors. All right. Bye for a short period. All right, we're back in regular session. Councillor Blatz called the motion at 3:20 to come back into regular session. And so for a rise report from our closed session, I'm going to call on Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that council appoint Andre Rocha to the Olds Municipal Library Board for a term of 2 years to expire October 25th, 2027.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cook. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. It is passed. Thank you very much. Moves us down to item number 11, adjournment. I adjourn the meeting at 3:21.